Hello, I'm Dave Feinlieb, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands build product detail pages, retail media, and sales enablement content more than 80% faster than their category competitors at itsrapid.ai. My guest on today's show is Chris Perry, Chief Learning Officer at firstmovr. Chris founded firstmovr with Oscar Kozipski in April of 2020. Previously, Chris was VP of Global Executive Education at Edge by Essential, Senior Director of E-commerce at Kellogg Company, and Director of E-commerce Advisory at Planet Retail R&G. We cover Chris's experience in the industry, his perspective on retail media, product content, and AI, and his predictions for the next 12 months and beyond. Please enjoy my conversation with Chris Perry. Chris, so great to see you.
Thank you, Dave. I'm just really honored to be here.
Take us back. How'd you get your start in the space?
Well, I was born in, I go back, what I always like to say is, especially when we're training and educating teams, both at companies, but also at our events, there's always that feeling of like, we were all homegrown somewhere, right? Like nobody started in the space. To be fair, there's some new people coming out of college or out of business school who might have started in e-commerce. And so maybe for them, they only know e-commerce, and that's okay. Or Omni, whatever we want to call the next stage of change. But everyone is homegrown in this space, especially from a middle management to senior leadership standpoint. And I think that's always a humbling place to start, because no one knew what they didn't know before they knew it and learned it, failed, figured it out, and optimized. So I always like to say I started in brand management after business school. I had a little career in marketing. I went to business school, knew I wanted to do brand management, got a chance at Reckitt, which was amazing. I would say boot camp. They really were the lean, mean fighting machine of CPG. Got to work on Lysol as a global brand, then got to work on Ridex septic system treatment, which is a very sexy category, a local brand. And then there was this special project that came up at one of our town halls called e-tailing. And I'd been shopping online myself. My wife and I were increasing 40 to 50% of what we bought was online, often at Amazon, but at other retailers, even in the early days as well. And so I saw this as a huge opportunity. I knew digital was already infiltrating our marketing campaigns. And I raised my hand. And I remember when I looked around, there were like 3 of us that had raised our hand when they'd asked for volunteers for this special project. And that became the team, right? We actually got to be this team. However, at that very point, I always like to tell the stories. I remember several of my peers and some of my mentors pulled me aside, like, Chris, you made this horrible decision. Like, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean horrible decision? Like, you're hearing people you trust tell you that you veered wrong. And they said, you're going to niche your career. Like how are you going to ever get back into the brand track if you go too far off? Like they won't see you as a candidate. And, that did scare me at first, because I'd been training my whole career to go into brand management and worked my way up. But I ended up bringing that marketing mindset to what was at that time just a sales mindset of selling on Amazon. It was somebody who owned a distributor and also had Amazon, or was, it was a special project team, one lead. And so I got to bring my marketing nerdity to the table, got to help build the original team at Reckitt. Then several years later, got a chance to go do that again at Wellness Pet Company. Then actually took that I did a veering into what became Edge by Essential, and now Flywheel, if you know all of our iterations, but at Planet Retail R&G. Then Kellogg's had an opportunity. That's actually where I met Oscar, but Oscar reached out and said, we choose you, Pikachu. And so I got to go into the Poke Stadium here, the Pokemon Stadium, and work at Kellogg's, which was an awesome experience. Then I did enjoy Edge, so I got a chance to go back to Edge, do what I really love to do, which is education and consulting and supporting brands, being able to look at all the chaos and organize it and help them understand it. And then when COVID hit, this really gets us to where we are today. There was an opportunity. Oscar was consulting, and we had an opportunity to like partner up on a focus just on industry education, training, advisory. And so First Mover became this opportunity, and we launched it together. And now in e-com years, we've been doing this for like 100 years, but it's been 4 years. And we've obviously gotten the honor to work with you and so many other wonderful thought leaders and experts in the space. And it keeps growing. So it's been a crazy journey over 15 years. And now I'm dating myself in e-com years, but it's been fun.
What a great arc and path and a great story. I got to ask, that time when you raised your hand and you were one of the 3 people who said, I'm going to go do e-commerce, what is it that gave you the courage and the conviction to do that?
If you ever get a chance to read The 6 Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni, it's kind of a simplified version of like personality tests like Enneagram and Myers-Briggs, but it's quite a cool personality assessment, and it's really good for figuring out how you work with other people. And my type is the invention discernment type. So everyone has all 6 strengths somewhere in you, but there are 2 that are like the ones that feed you and that you really drive. And I'm what they call an ID, or an invention discernment. And so I really love just ideating how to make things better. I don't have all the perfect ideas, but I love to ideate, discern them, think about them. And so unfortunately for most people, I'm always asking, well, what if we did this? Or like, have we ever thought about that or that? I feel like that would do better, not to criticize what we're doing, but just to keep making it better or to prompt you to come up with a better idea. I don't always have them. Sometimes I'm annoying to those who maybe are stuck with me for more than 30 minutes at a time. But I think for me, it's like when I see something happening in my own life and I'm like, I don't see that being addressed at work yet, or I don't see a brand doing that. I'm challenging the status quo because I want us to be better. I don't have all the answers, but that was kind of I'd been asking for a while when I was in brand, is there a digital track? Is there some experience I could go learn this to help our teams be better? They didn't have one at the time, but when that project came up to me, that was like, there's the opportunity, because that merges marketing and media and then sales and other experiences I don't already have. And maybe we could help figure out how to do this for the company and drive them to be even better in the market. So it's just a natural ingrained curiosity about doing better that drives me. But I've seen that people can curate that themselves. They don't have to be an ID type from this working genius thing. Everybody can do that if they apply themselves. So
I love it. Great insights. Tell us about First Mover. You started this coming up on 4 years ago now. What's the latest? What are you guys up to?
What's interesting is when I talk to people who come to our events. So we're an Omni education and change management organization. We've pivoted a couple times to support CPGs and retailers and agencies where we saw the need, because we have been a practitioner leaders before and built businesses and done all the work too. So we felt that there was a need to be an independent platform that wasn't beholden to anyone, that could just be honest and bring the best of the best together for events, that could bring industry best practices, that could customize and plug right in as like almost a tack-on center of excellence or a white labeled center of excellence leads into organizations. But what's always funny is when we talk to people who come to our events, sometimes they don't know that we do all this other stuff. So we do put on public industry events and Dave, you've been a part of so many of them now. You're a veteran. We should have like a council of Elrond, that meets on our events. But, we put about 30 to 40 events, virtual events together a year. We are looking at in-person in the future. But those are all free for brands to attend. Anybody in the industry, really, we're not going to turn you away. It's really to democratize really high quality content on specific strategies. Not just saying we're talking about e-commerce, but like, how do I win on Amazon today? How do I take content to the next level today? Or what's the future of measurement tomorrow, right? But really actionable content. And so we do these events, and we have thousands of people who join our events across the year, depending on what niches and content they want. But what a lot of people don't know is that we've trained now over 25,000 professionals with customized programs, certifications internally. That may be shot. That's the last number I counted to. We do playbooks. Obviously it's strategy guides. We help assess strategy. We can actually do projects. We actually have temp services, so we can plug people into projects that need to get done but can't get full-time headcount. And we've obviously been very excited to have Amanda Wolf join us on as a board member and a contributor. So she's bringing a lot of her expertise to a number of our projects. So our band of official and unofficial Evengers are growing, and we do so much behind the curtains. I always like to say we're like the Wizards of Oz. We do a lot of things behind the curtain, and you see Oz, but we might actually be able to help you in a number of other ways too. So, but it's been a really exciting journey thus far, and we'd look forward to continuing to plug into challengers and leaders and help individuals and companies continue to grow in Omni and where AI takes us next. So,
speaking of challenges and leaders, I think that's the perfect segue to talk about your framework, the Smarter framework, from a bunch of guys who couldn't possibly be any smarter. So tell us about the framework. What is it? What do we need to know?
And I always like to caveat, because I never want to offend. When we say smarter, we don't mean anyone isn't smart. We started with that idea of like, you take a goal and you make it smart, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. I didn't make that up. That was instead of just saying, how do we do things better? It was like, how can we be smarter by making our goals and then the plans for those goals more specific, measurable, achievable. So thinking through that, because, and I'll get to our framework, but where we've seen challenges is when we were in brick and mortar. So when I started my brand career, most of the business was brick and mortar in-store sales. Because the growth was generally low single digits, because a lot of those categories were mature, the retailers were relatively mature, unless you looked at like a dollar channel or club or something that was truly net incremental. You weren't going to grow just growing in all directions. You were going to grow by having category management help you figure out like a basket building strategy or a trip strategy, right? Or a new buyer, a new brand buyer strategy, or how do we get lapsed back in? And I remember how much time was spent on those strategies. Then enter e-commerce, stage left, right? And we end up having this situation where we resource the center of excellence. They build the capabilities. We optimize content, media, paid search, assortment, availability, all important things. But those are like the 4 Ps of traditional. We can call them 6 Ps or 8 Ps or the 20 Ps, whatever it is. But those are the how you grow, not the why you grow. And it was almost like over the last 15 years, we kind of forgot, in like a weird dark ages, we forgot about what actually drives growth. Yes, content drives growth, but tailored to a very specific audience, trying to get them to do a very specific thing, right? So if I'm going after, and I might want to speak to many shoppers, but there's probably a primary and a secondary audience I'm really going after by SKU or by brand or sub-brand or line of products. So that it really sparked this opportunity, because a lot of brands are saying, Chris, Oscar, First Mover, what are you seeing? What's next level? What'll drive more incrementality? We've maxed out. We've got greens on our scorecards. We're like, everything's going well, but we're not growing anymore. And part of it too, there were a couple other companies who would say, can you look at our strategy, like our 5-year plan? And we would look at building blocks, and like the building block was retail media. And I'm not saying that you can't have that as a building block, right? That's where I'm going to invest more money. But what are you doing with retail media to grow? Don't just tell me optimizing, right? Like around what? Like if I'm a snack company, could I create new occasions, right? And then my media and my content and my assortment, now I can build the building block around new occasions as a snack, lunch, back to school packs and movie night packs and holiday packs. So nothing crazy new to anyone in traditional business, but like, it's kind of like we missed that connectivity step. We focused on the how to get the what, right? We focused on the levers to get the growth, but we didn't remember the why part, the inside of which type of growth are we going after. So smarter growth is our like codex framework for, I guess, maybe reteaching everyone. We didn't reinvent it all, but reteaching everyone around the 12 different ways you can grow incrementally. But it also pulls in profitability, because we can grow incrementally on the bottom line too. And then what I love obviously about what It's Rapid can help with is it's not just the traditional levers of content media, but it's your process, because how you do it, how fast you do it, how automated you do it, if I make up that adverb right there, your partnerships, your data, all of those are extra levers that you might not have been leveraging in the past with the traditional 4Ps. So that's kind of the framework. And we actually, we have our own series that we do on that to help educate a little bit on that. We do a lot of workshops on that. But it's not like a hidden formula. It's not like we're just trying to rebrand it so that people get excited about doing that again and focusing on the why.
So many great insights here. Is there an example that comes to mind for you? You spend a lot of time with these brands, training people, consulting, things you've seen recently that really popped for you?
Well, within Smarter Growth, like we've had to pull some presentations together with and it's always fun to walk the shelf and look for who's doing this really well. But there was like a couple, like when I think of like bringing people into the category, which is actually not a role a lot of brands try to take because they want market share for brand, but the retailer wants market share for retailer and they want more people in the category. So if you're in a position where you're at that like JBP level, that will earn you more credit points if you can help bring more people in. But good example, like I saw a couple like suntan lotion brands, for instance, that had like this simple piece of content, like how to apply suntan lotion. Now, when I saw that, I said, who doesn't know how to squeeze it out and rub it in? However, someone who doesn't use suntan lotion doesn't know how to do that. So if you wanted to, like, it sounds so simple, but maybe that's who they're talking to with that product. Or I saw, and I'm leaving them kind of nameless to protect the innocent, even though some of these are best practices, but I saw a razor brand who actually had like a nice little call out that was like great for first time leg shavers, or like I thought, what a cool way to call that out is own the fact that yes, anyone can use it, but we're really targeting you. I always like, and I always like probably overly tout, like Mondelez does a really nice job, I personally think, of creating new occasions, not only in communicating that through content, which is like a low-hanging fruit, that you could do that right away without creating new product, but then also activating around it with media and search, but also then actually testing, learning, and launching special packs. So not just your traditional e-pack that's designed to sell online profitably, but again, movie night packs. And like in India, they've got some really cool innovation around like Diwali holiday gift chocolate packs from Cadbury. Like these are all public facing. I mean, and again, some probably worked better than others, but they are an expandable consumption category company. And so I want to create more reason for you to buy more times for my brands. And so I will say maybe my other favorite one is like L'Oreal does a really nice job across a lot of strategies, but one they do really well is building baskets. So they not only communicate with content, media promotion, they activate people to build the regimen, right? So if you're going to buy from CeraVe or Revitalift or whatever, you're buying like the whole regimen, either in a bundle or they're communicating why you should buy all four separately to create the look. And so they do a really nice job, I think, and I think we see them continue to grow, being very specific by SKU at what strategy each SKU is going to play in driving incrementality.
So many great insights there. Mondelez, we love working with them on their content and seeing the new products. It's amazing, right? What they do along with the other brands you mentioned there. So a lot of great innovation in the space. I want to take a moment to talk about content, the content piece of it. How does that translate to building a piece of content for the product detail page? We've been building product detail pages for a while now, but yet we're still seeing some new innovation there.
So with respect to like Catman, like kind of that angle, I would say what's interesting is when we audit content or teach on content, we always say, the first kind of, and it's a little bit subjective because obviously first I have to say, do I have adequate content? Do I have 6 images, 1 video, right? Like there's going to be like the checklist of, am I complete? But then when you get to complete, we hope you are compelling, but compelling is a moving target. And so to make more compelling content, we do have kind of a framework for auditing and teaching that. But the first one always starts with kind of that shopper-centric story, right? Like, do I know what they need to know? And am I telling it in a way they need to know it? But what's interesting is if you think, who am I talking to? Part of who I'm talking to isn't just demographics, geographic, psychographics. Is it a heavy buyer who could buy more now or more often? Is it a lapsed user who could come back for a new reason? So thinking through that, the Catman part adds a layer to the profile of the person I'm designing my content for. And so it doesn't necessarily have to change your entire story, but if your 6 images or your enhanced page or your video or all of the above, hopefully all synced together, aren't speaking to that primary audience, you may be missing out, right? And I'll pick on L'Oreal. If L'Oreal is talking to me with a product that's not designed for me, they might be missing the boat. They're not doing that. But if they were, I'd be the first to tell them, I don't think I'm the one you want. I appreciate you didn't exclude me, but don't feel bad to exclude me because I wasn't included to begin with. I wasn't who was going to I was going to respond to your content or your advertising, even if we go to the demand generation side. So I know nobody wants to use the word exclusive, like we want to be inclusive, but not every brand is going to serve every shopper. And you've got to pick a direction and design the story around that very specific shopper, maybe with the secondary one in mind, knowing that, yes, I want new buyers, but yes, I also want current buyers to keep buying, so I don't want to alienate them. So, but it's just that careful balance of designing the story with the shopper profile in mind, but part of that shopper profile is the Catman place in the journey they are.
Takeaways, blog posts, books to be written, I imagine. Talk to us about Omnigeddon, one of your most recent pieces that came out earlier this year.
Yeah. So that one was a lot of fun. And the name itself was more fun probably than the actual work to put all of the stuff nicely together in a mini ebook, which is free. You can get that on firstmovr.com/Omnigeddon. It's a PDF. There's nothing to sign into or anything. And it's just a simple set of 12 predictions. And I'm putting that in air quotes for anybody listening. But I don't like the word prediction when I don't know what's really going to happen. What I do like, though, but because people know what predictions mean, we call them expectations, only because we see them as first mover advantages from companies that are thinking about them or leveraging them or activating them already. But what we kind of found was that a lot of companies, even the leading companies, might be doing 2 of the 12 things that we kind of put together. And another group is doing 1 of those and 3 of the others. And so no one is going to be perfect, but no one has all of the, I feel like all the plays that work from all the playbooks are sitting there. And it's just a matter of putting them together and saying, I'm going to do all of them, or I'm going to do most of them. And so, and we had to cut a few, obviously, and silo some and tease them out so they were separated. But Catman 2.0 is one of those, which, again, we did not reinvent category management. We're just trying to reintroduce it to a whole generation of leaders who probably get it, but need to apply it. And then we also, when we talk to category managers, we're like, hey, if you knew how e-commerce worked, you could be the leader here. You could help with the strategy. So there's a real opportunity to sync the organization back up and integrate it back in so that e-com learns the growth principles and the growth strategy people learn the e-commerce principles. And then both can work more and more hand in hand together as the company integrates. So that was one of our 12, was this dawn of Catman 2.0. But we had a number of other ones that were quite cool. And this, some of the ones that stuck out to me was we were talking about we called it dreaming in Omni. And what we meant by dreaming in Omni was when you become fluent in a language, you often find yourself dreaming in that language. And I actually majored in French in college. I have not used it effectively since, but I went to several immersion programs where by week 3, I was literally dreaming in French. And I remember feeling so accomplished because I really was fluent at a point in time. And so the opportunity for all of us is to become fluent in Omni by both being curious, learning, right? We're not, first mover isn't the only place you can learn from, but obviously we've tried to make sure that was democratized, right? Whether you work on Walmart or Kroger or Albertsons or all of them or Amazon, it's staying Omni. And so even if you only know e-com, learn brick and mortar, right? If you know brick and mortar, learn Omni. But part of it is also just asking the right questions internally and starting to pull the right data in. So data is the ultimate, data won't lie, right? Data, if the leading metrics are one thing, but the lagging metrics, the output metrics aren't there, you got to change and start reorganizing around the leading metrics to get the outputs that you want. Data is ultimately one of our call outs as well, but data is maybe second to just accountability. Like being in a meeting, I always like to use the one example. I actually did this in a meeting with with a client partner, and I got this very response. So I said, "Hey, I think this was a really cool plan. It was for a commercial innovation. I said this is a really cool thing, and we were weighing in on this. And I said, how are we going to make this more Omni?" And I just paused really awkwardly for 30 seconds. And I said nothing else. I normally like to fill a room, but I said nothing. And two people went off of Teams because it was virtual. And there were other people that like looked away from the camera. It was like, if we'd been in person, they would have walked out of the room to go to the bathroom. Like it was, and then somebody was very brave and said, "Well, Chris, I know what Omni means, but what do you mean by that?" And so what it meant was then we had to create like a little mini checklist of, well, for an innovation like this is what Omni would mean for that. Have we done enough to be Omni? Now, yes, we can make this way more scientific with a full quantification, qualification, data. All of that's going to help. But just even as a leader asking the question, have we made this new product launch plan Omni enough? Or could we make this more Omni? It's a silly question, but you can replace it with more specifics. But by default, asking that holds everyone accountable to figuring out what that means. And then when you go do it, and we have our like frameworks and checklists and things that can help companies assess this. But I can't tell you how many teams are like, our new product launch process doesn't even include e-commerce in it. Well, that's good to go fix. And we can be very specific about where we insert e-com, but we can just start at the beginning. Could we make this more Omni? Get the leader at the beginning to ask that question and then bring you in. Easier said than done, but it starts with that first question. So that's one of ours. So we talk about full funnel media in there. We talk about data. We talk about AI impact. We talk about one of the last one was more on a personal level, but this whole idea of AI replacing everyone's jobs is a concern. I do think companies may lay off people before they actually realize AI can't do the thing they thought was going to replace it. But that's they didn't ask me, but we called it like working 9 to fractional. And the idea of like, instead of 9 to 5 down the road, we all may need to be more open to essentially working for many companies with the skill set we have in a very fractionalized way. We've heard of fractional CMOs and other leadership. A lot of us may find benefit down the road if we might be working part-time somewhere and then fractionally at 3 or 4 other companies. And that might sound completely scary to some people, but the moment you're open to that potential concept, you could be open to the future of your career actually helping many companies, right? So I was a full-time employee in my past. I wouldn't have ever thought of starting on my own until the opportunity, presented itself. So it's and now that I'm here, I don't know that I'd immediately go back, right? So, but we had a lot of fun putting those predictions, if you will, expectations together, and they really cover organizational, industry, and even personal things to think about.
We'll include a link in the show notes so people can check it out. I want to spend a moment here on AI. Speaking of AI, how are you seeing brands and retailers put it to work? How much is it being piloted? How much is it in production? What are you seeing?
While there are some clear definitions of what AI has been and what it is today, and there's some early implementations by retailers and brands alike, it's not fully established yet, and it's constantly changing. I mean, even when we think of like, if you talk about what ChatGPT or Midjourney can do, it changes like every other day in terms of, so you almost have to timestamp this isn't just like the source 2021. You have to be like source February 27th, 2024, because you might miss the nuance. But many of you out there are seeing this. I'm hearing this too, reading the headlines, but I find it really interesting. I think there's positive, negative, and very disruptive potentials to AI, and maybe disruptive is in the positive for some brands. A positive is we have a lot of retailers have been testing their AI assisted search, and you've got Amazon Rufus, and you've got you've got Instacart, Ask Instacart, you got all these different iterations. They're not all the exact same, but the idea that instead of just searching for a keyword, I'm actually almost conversing with the search engine. It's replying back like ChatGPT would with a more personalized answer, and also then the products that come along with it. So it's not me saying, "Hey Alexa, buy me laundry detergent," and it's just trying to surface like Amazon's choice or what I bought last time. It's actually saying, and obviously I could add a little bit more context. I'd like one with lavender, but also for sensitive skin. And then it's going to, if it can't find one immediately, it's going to iterate with me. So that becomes really interesting, right? That's a more personalized, maybe higher converting experience for a shopper. So for brands and retailers, that could be really interesting. The challenge is, I don't know what that formula is to win. Like, I think the easiest thing to fall back to is table stakes. Do I have really high quality content? Well, first, do I have a high quality product that actually delivers on the promise? Yes, check. Is my content representative at a bare minimum, if not compelling on top of that promise? Yes. Do I have the right keywords in the right places to be relevant for any search engine to find me, even at basic levels of SEO? Yes. Am I already in people's carts? So I already have a history of being part of a personalized, a personalized offering. Yes. I mean, that's why leaning in now is helpful. But we don't actually know what's in the black box of what Alexa was using to truly pull things up outside of what some people hacked to kind of identify. And we don't necessarily yet know what Amazon Rufus is using to pull somebody up yet. But I think it's we can at least say, no matter what, we're going to want really high quality content that's optimized for specific keywords and phrases, that is already in people's carts, that has great reviews. I mean, we're going to want some of those. So that's a positive, even though we don't know. But the disruptive part is where we get, and Oscar is much deeper into this than I am, already trying to test and learn on some of these things, which is quite cool. Sometimes he's my first mover on certain topics, which is always cool. But it's this idea of like an Amazon Rufus or Google's evolving capability bypasses the need for some of the retail media or the paid search. Not completely. It's going to change. It's still they're all going to still need to keep their digital advertising money. So they're not going to risk all of that just for an AI assisted shelf, but it's going to change how ads show up, where they show up. And it may make it even more important that you invest with an Amazon or a retailer because they own the AI search that everyone uses. The other element to that is like these devices, like the Humane AI pin that you wear that makes me think to like Star Trek, or the Rabbit R1 device that's supposed to be like a co-pilot in your hand, not to replace your phone, but to basically do your tasks and prevent the need for the apps, right? It becomes a really powerful thing for the shopper that they will likely flock to as it removes friction, but it does change how do I make sure the Rabbit R1 recommends me? When I ask through the device for a recommendation, whose criteria are they using to pull it up? So that's the scary part right now, is like, I've heard a couple leaders are just, as my last point would be, that it's like, well, I don't know what to go do. And I think the hard part is, nobody knows exactly what to go do. However, we do know what works today. We do know that there's still a bridge to that future where those replace a significant share of behavior and sales. Focus on the things that the core principle of winning on Google and or on Amazon has always been relevant, high quality, shoppable, converting content, pages, products. And obviously part of that is the SEO optimization of it. So we just may have to change the kinds of keywords we weave in that are now more about phrasing and questions, and maybe change our content to adjust to that.
Well, Chris, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. As always, I'd love to ask you a few quick wrap-up questions before we sign off. First off is your number one prediction for the next 12 months and beyond. I know it's hard to pick just one, but if you had to put something on our radar, what would it be?
We're already seeing a lot of teams merging teams together, both from a media and a retail media. Again, Catman actually being hired as specialist on e-com teams or for the Center of Excellence. Centers of Excellence starting to embed the responsibilities for content or media briefing and things back in the brand, but yet being there to support the operations. So I think it's going to be that integration it's not going to be overnight, but I feel like 2024 is going to be the year that, even in Profiteer study, that they're going to see a bigger jump, because the leaders in market are the companies that have already started to pivot. And that's been true over the last 3 years of them seeing performance against organization. And I think, so this isn't about like getting rid of jobs. I really actually think you need more people in the right places, but it's that idea of embedding the team so that this isn't a separate sidecar or separate leader doing this work. It's everybody owning that, because otherwise you have two separate companies doing divergent things. And you get into the situation that Walmart was in, where they had store business and an online business that were separate. Once they merged together, Walmart's been spending on all cylinders. Not perfect, but every retailer who does that will see their own benefit. Brands can do that too.
Love it. Well, Chris, I got a couple of quick ones to throw at you. The first one is, and I know it's hard to pick just two, but which two people have inspired you the most in your professional career?
Maybe as a silly one, I would say, but not a silly one, just as a one that, not someone I know, but when I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, I felt like I met myself, but he's way more handsome than I am, and more successful than I am. But it was like reading what I would have wanted to say to someone back to me, but who could articulate it way better than I could. And if you haven't read his book, it's an awesome book. If you haven't watched his TED Talk, that's even a quicker version of his book. But I'm big on people's why and your purpose, right? Why are we doing what we're doing? And it kind of goes to that whole thing of like, a lot of people get stuck on I do what I do because that's what I do. But then the next question, that what if, like, well, could we be doing something differently to get more of what we want? Why are we even doing what we're doing? And I think that's that people lose that fire of why. We just kind of get into the track of, well, this is my job. This is my role. Yes, it is. But why? Like, why? Let's get excited about it again and invent a reason to be excited and make that the focus of the brand or the company. So that was one, I would say. And then, some of my former e-commerce managers and direct, my bosses in the past, including Oscar, who hired me originally, even though then I ended up reporting into the chief customer officer. I always was very impressed by they were able to deal with ambiguity the same way I had to as a leader of change who had to do something new in a company. Sam Gagliardi, who went to Circana IRI, he was one of my original e-commerce managers as well. I always found they had a way, and I always valued their way of like deflecting the discomfort or the challenge of being a leader of change, when sometimes that meant I was hired to do a job no one really wants me to go do because it makes them uncomfortable. And I don't mean that they had it easy either, but they always made it seem easier. And it always made me feel less alone. And I think that's what inspired me even back at Edge, is to build a tribe and a community of all these people who feel alone separately, but really aren't alone. We're all change leaders together. And we should feel really good knowing that we don't have to be appreciated in that moment. We're the next Steve Jobs, right? We're the next whatever of a whole generation of change to come because of us. And I think that was a very empowering piece.
The change agent and the comfort with the discomfort, and why. It's such a great question. We had Harvey Ma on from Albertsons Media Collective, and one of his big things, I asked him, what's one of his big drivers? And he said, why. He keeps asking why until he gets to the root of it. And I felt that when you said that just now.
I had to do a sales training, and I remember this is me who leads trainings. I rolled my eyes at a training I had to take at Kellogg's with my whole team. It was one of the best trainings we ever did as a team, because we had to ask the question why up to 4 times to get to the root cause of an issue. And when we actually did that, I'd already been doing that, but I didn't process it like with that simple a step. When we actually did that, everything came back to this, like we had 4 different problems that all came back to the same root cause, and we were able to go after that root cause and set up the team for success for that rest of that year. So it was, that is an important one. Start with why is good just for yourself, for motivation, but it's also good for finding the problem or the opportunity.
Chris, when you get some time outside of work and spending time with your family, favorite hobbies, how do you like to spend your downtime?
So my favorite thing, honestly, and anybody who knows me would know this well, even though I don't get a venue for this, is I love to sing. I am a singer. I come from a long line of musicians and singers. My family would be like the Von Trapp family singers if we actually had enough people. I'd really like to start the Jackson 5 in my own family unit. I just have to have a few more kids to fill it out. But I was in an all-male a cappella group in college. We got to sing for the Queen of England rest in peace. At the White House, we got to sing on cruises. We got to do all kinds of cool things. And I really miss that. I feel like I'm a closet case a cappella singer who sings at home and is just looking for the right group. But today I idolize the rockapella group who was on Carmen Sandiego back at on PBS long ago, and then did the Folgers theme song in the 90s. I love that song. But if you listen to the rockapella Folgers commercial from the late 90s, that is my spirit animal inside of me. But beyond singing, I also run. I've just run my 50th 5K or 10K in the last year, and I also do boxing. So I'm trying to stay fit, stay vocally fit, and then also bring all that energy back to the first mover space.
If folks want to get in touch with you, find you online, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Whether you want to or not, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can just type Oscar Koszubski or Chris Perry or Amanda Wolf right into LinkedIn. You will find us. Or you can email me at chris@firstmovr.com. Remember, there's no E in First Mover because there's no E in e-commerce. Or you can get all of us by writing to hello@firstmovr.com, and all of us will receive it. And we can get back to you quickly.
Commerce, Omni, and why. What a great session today. Chris, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much, Dave.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.